Hello and welcome to Challenge Mode. I have a wonderful guest with me, Sir Mike
Wonderful
Stout.
guest.
Yes.
Oh, wow, I'm Sir Mike Stout.
Yeah, I'm British. I can give you that title.
Okay. Are you like the Queen?
I can be if
I didn't
dress up
know
for
that.
parties.
I didn't know that was a power given to the British people.
No, it's not. But I wish you would be made a sir. You've formed my childhood. But anyway.
Thank you. You know what? I think from you it's better than the Queen. So there we go.
Yes. Excellent. Life accomplishment achieved. So this was the first Ratchet Clank game you didn't make, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's your favorite,
if you don't count like the mobile phone games and
there was a mobile one.
Yeah, there was it was a long time ago, still for dumb phones, like pre-iPhone.
Right.
Where you'd play it with the number pad and stuff.
Yeah.
There were two of them. One of them was called. It had something to do with Ratchet shrinking, I think. It wasn't Size Matters, but it was.
Right. So a different idea based on it.
I think so. It's really difficult. We didn't make those, so I don't think I ever played it because I didn't have the right phone. But I remember being in meetings where we were making it, and I know it did get made.
Right.
So besides those, this was the first one I didn't work on.
Yeah. Was Size Matters before this, or was this first?
Oh, I don't remember. It's been so long. Let's see. Size Matters was made by High Impact.
Yeah, that's it's people from Insomniac and Naughty Dog, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, mainly from Insomniac and then a bunch of other companies.
Yeah.
Or at least they were. I think High Impact isn't around anymore.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah. But where was I going with that?
Which came first?
Yeah,
the
I can't remember. But I know that most of the original employees that made up that company left about Ratchet 3 time.
Right.
So it might have been coming out around here, yeah. So I can't remember whether it came out first or not. But I didn't work on that one either.
You worked on part of Resistance, didn't you?
I did. I did the multiplayer, and I did a single player design for the Manchester Cathedral level.
I love that level.
Oh yeah, thanks.
Seriously, that's actually one of my best moments because the Resistance was one of the first FPS I played with my friend Deadpool, and it was really funny because I'm terrible at shooters, but and we were playing it co-op, and that level was when we kept failing and I was getting really pissed off. I was like, right, let's just do this. So I just stepped forward behind it, got out of any barricade and just killed about 50 people in a row without any hesitation. It was the best. it was such a good feeling. I've just noticed how many bolts I've gathered in this single level. How? That's challenge mode for you.
Yeah, when I was playing this game, I got through about 2 levels of challenge mode by accident.
Right.
Because I beat the game, and then I was like, well, it wouldn't hurt for me to just see how challenge mode is.
Yeah.
And then 2 hours later, I was like, God, I need to stop playing. It's 3 a.m. Yeah, I love this game. This is my favorite.
Challenge mode consumes you. I remember, when I first played, I don't know, for some reason I didn't like this, and then I let's played it. I was like, this is the best. Why didn't I like this? I think
so many bolts.
I think it was like the period in my life where I wasn't as happy because of school and whatnot. So that was probably why this game, like, it perked me up, but not enough, if that makes sense. So
no, I get it.
So yeah, that's probably why. But I love this game now. I'm looking forward to Quest for Booty and Crack in Time though, because I remember Crack in Time being really good. The
reason I love this game so much is the upgrade system.
Yeah, the upgrades are good.
That was a friend of mine named Sean Whistler did that.
Right.
And he was one of the big designers on this game.
Right. The only problem I have with it is the stuff like the Groovatron and whatnot. I don't feel the need to ever use them.
Unlike in this one.
Yeah, in this one I don't feel the need to ever use stuff like the Groovatron and Mr. Zircon and whatnot, which you can buy some versions of them, because I don't know. They just the weapons, upgrading the weapons is so much more satisfying and just more helpful in terms of everything, really.
Right, and progressing and all that stuff. It was a rough problem they were backed into, right? They wanted to have the dancing weapon, and they wanted to have an improved version of the synthenoids and stuff like that. But generally speaking, those types of gadgets break the game very easily if you don't limit them.
Wasn't there a story you told on Useless Podcasts about how all the people were bored of making Resistance? They wanted to make stuff like dancing enemies because it was fun to animate.
Yes, that's true. I remember the Groovatron. It wasn't called the Groovatron. I think it was called various things like the Rainbow Afrolyzer and the
yes!
Good Timesinator and stuff like that. But it was pitched for every game, starting with Ratchet 2.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and different people would pitch it every time, forgetting that it had been pitched before.
Right.
And it would get shot down every time for the same reason, right? Which is, the animators have too much work. We can't ask them to animate a dance animation for every single enemy in the game. Because every level has pretty much 3 new enemies in it, right? Like, on average.
Yeah.
So, that's in a typical Ratchet game, that's somewhere around like 40 enemies. Plus, any ambient NPCs or anything that you wanted to dance. And so it was always off limits.
And whatnot.
Yeah, exactly. It was always off limits for us. Plus, what's the countermeasure, right? Like when you make all the enemies dance and kill them, that's great, but there's no, like with most of the weapons, there's a give and take and a push and pull.
Right.
But with a weapon like that, it's binary. So they had to come up with a way to limit it that was, and that meant no upgrades and stuff like that, which I think ultimately made it less. Like you didn't want to use it as much as the weapons, but that was intended because it was so powerful.
Yeah. Well, my question is, since you worked on Resistance, how didn't you end up also working on this in some form? Because weren't they made at the same time? They were both launch titles for the PS3, weren't they?
They overlapped, yeah. While we were working on Resistance, there was a small pre-production team that worked on this game.
Right.
And then once Resistance was done, everybody from Resistance, except for Resistance 2's pre-production team, started working on this game.
Ah, fair enough.
And I was on Resistance 2's pre-production team.
Ah, okay. So you also worked on Resistance 2?
I worked on it for 6 months, maybe, or 4 months, and then I ended up going to Obsidian. And I worked on the canceled Aliens RPG.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Just for those who aren't aware, this is let's see how fast Teal can clear this entire game. And skipping all cutscenes, just let's fly through this. Some cutscenes can't be skipped apparently. Well, now's a good time. I asked people in the last part questions for you, and I've got quite a few. So Jamie James 251, question 1. How does it feel knowing you made the series of games which some people grew up with and love?
It's really a cool feeling. We didn't know, Tony and I, when we started doing our developer commentary podcast series, we didn't realize how many people grew up with our games being important to them. Like at the time when we were making it, right? The games that were really successful were Grand Theft Auto, and Grand Theft Auto clone type games. So when we would see all the stories and everything, all the stuff that got news were those types of games, or Halo, or you know, and those were the games that were selling 10 million copies. And so we all didn't know what we were doing compared to that. Do you know what I mean? Like we felt like we're making good stuff, but we don't know what's going on. And then now to hear from fans who grew up with it and how important it was to them, and some people say that like we got one letter from a fan who said that their parents divorced, and they would always play Ratchet and Clank with their dad when they would go over to his house,
right?
And it was one of their happiest memories with him, and stuff like that. Just it really puts into context what we do.
Yeah.
And it's weird that it took 10 years for us to realize it, but it's very powerful and very cool.
Because I mean, nowadays with Let's Plays, you can actually see how the people feels when playing it, and also, if you do develop commentary, they can tell you directly. Yeah. So it's.
And I love Let's Plays. Like, I know there are some developers that don't, or some publishers that don't want them to happen, but for me, they're the best things in the world, because I get to watch a player play through everything.
Yeah.
And talk about it. That's so perfect, right?
Yeah.
Because then I can say, okay, he's entering this area. This is what I want him to do. What does he do and why? And then I can understand why that happened and fix it next time.
Yeah. Yeah, and also you can get the humor as well. Humor's great. I love jokes. Jokes are great.
Are good. And your podcasts tend to have lots of jokes too, which is why I appreciate them.
Yeah, I try. I try and be funny. I try and impress people. I try and have a life.
That's the key, trying, right?
That is.
The other thing about doing, working on games that mean a lot to people is, with the Ratchet game, we always knew we were making good things, but there was this weird sort of, like, if you worked on Halo and you went to the haircut place, right? And you said, I make video games. Oh, do you make Halo? No. Right? if you worked on Halo, yeah, right? And I worked on a game called Ratchet Clank. Have you ever heard of it? No. Right? But every single person that interviewed me for every single job I've ever had has said, I love Ratchet and Clank. It's the greatest game I've ever played. I want to hire you immediately. So it's probably been the most important thing I've ever worked on.
Yeah.
in terms of getting work.
I remember this. It was during the charity stream. I don't think it was mentioned in User's podcast, but you mentioned when someone was playing Gladiator that someone said, "How does it feel working on the worst Ratchet game?" or something like that. Didn't they ask you that in an interview?
They did, yeah.
The bastard.
It was fair enough, right? He didn't like Deadlocked, so he was trying to see if I would act like a dick when he called it the worst game in the world. Right. It was sort of a test.
Right, I see. It's still a bit mean.
Yeah, but I laughed, and I sort of explained to him the difficulties that came up during that game, and it was. Going back and playing it now, it is by far not the worst Ratchet game that's ever been.
I like it. I'm looking forward to the HD version, which is coming out. I have no idea when. They said it was last year. Now it's sometime this year, I hope. I don't know. There's no confirmation of that.
It can only be good if they're delaying it, because that means they're giving Idle Minds more time, right?
I'm hoping that they're doing what All for One did, as in it's online co-op, as the original was co-op. I'm hoping that's what they're doing. I'm praying that's what they're doing. If it's taking this long, that must be what they're doing. If they're not doing that, they are missing something. It can't take a year to port that. It just can't. There is no way.
I think it definitely could take a year to port it.
But not. No, it can't.
They've done a bunch of work in porting the engine over, but the engine for Deadlocked was completely different. Like every time we made the game, we took the engine from the last game, removed a bunch of the bugs that we found, and then completely overhauled it.
Right, I see.
So technology that like we would add new features or we would change the way that systems worked and things like that. So if they're emulating this or trying to figure out a way to port it, it's just it's nearly impossible to do blind, right? They just have to comb through the code and figure it out.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff like with Ratchet Clank 3, the original debug codes are there. So you can go to any world, which is great, and you can equip any gun.
Is it all the original debug codes, or how does it work?
It's a few. There's one where you type in. There's like 3 different codes, I think. There's one where you type it in and you can travel to any world. And there's another one, and you basically press select on a weapon and it gives you it, or takes it away. And so you can have everything right from the get-go. It's great.
Okay.
With you are limited to like 10 HP. So if you want to go to the last world, you're in for a shock because you'll suffer. Although I did kill one enemy with a rhino using the debug code, and I went from 10 HP to like 30. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, that'll happen.
Not expecting that. Even though I just wasn't expecting it to go up that much.
Interestingly enough, those debug codes weren't our debug codes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, those are Idle Minds' debug codes.
Ah, okay.
We didn't have any shortcuts like that.
Ah, okay.
We had shortcuts, but not
right
the ones you're describing. You know, like ours were you'd press pause, type in punch in a code, and then you press select, and all of a sudden it was this giant black screen with white text with a whole bunch of options. That was our debug stuff.
Ah, fair enough. Well, I think my favorite debug thing is Crash: The Wrath of Cortex. I don't know if you've played that, but in one level only, if you do time trial, you press select as soon as you get the clock, it teleports you to the end. So I assume that was used to test the platinum to make sure it worked, and gave you the platinum at the specific times, but they forgot to remove it on that one particular level. At least that's what I assume. And I love that. It's great. It makes life so much easier when I can complete it in 3 seconds.
I would imagine so, yeah. It's like when, playing Mario 3, when I figured out I could use the P-Wing to fly over levels I hated.
Yes, that too. Yeah, it's, they sort of brought that back with, New Super Mario Bros. U. There's,
I didn't actually.
There's a P-Wing in that, and yeah, you have to catch an abbot, and it basically gives you, infinite flight, so it's very handy.
I'm a bit behind on my consoles. I don't have a 3DS or a Wii U yet.
Oh, really? Oh, Wii U's great. Nintendo Land is much funner than it looks. Like, in the E3 conference, I was just like, alright, playing it. Yes! Never want to stop. Never.
The only things I've done with Wii U are looking at the Skylanders Giants port, you know?
Oh, yeah.
So that's
on the Wii U now?
It's been Wii U since the Wii U came out, yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's got a bunch of improved stuff like the graphics and frame rate and all sorts of everything, and then
is anything
all the puzzles.
Like what happened? Is the puzzles on the smaller screen?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
You can do them on the upper screen too, but you can use the touch screen to do them.
Okay. Cool.
Same with Sky Stones.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like the Wii. The Wii U is such a good idea. Like in my opinion, that is pretty much like the best the console will get in terms of like what you need to do for it. You don't need stuff like Kinect without a controller. It's a terrible idea. It just like some stuff doesn't work. Racing does not work with Kinect at all. You cannot play a racing game.
Yeah, you can't sit there and pretend to steer with nothing. That's true.
Yeah, it also like FPSs aren't good enough. It can't measure the correct movement properly. It's just I don't like it. Also, you need to have a giant room. I don't have a giant room.
Yeah, or an Oculus Rift maybe.
Yeah, I want that. Okay, yeah, that sounds great. But
well, see, the thing is it fixes the problem that every single motion control has, which is lag. Everything that they did with that hardware was to try to remove lag.
Yeah, well,
and
the Wii U doesn't feel that laggy.
Yeah, they did a really good job with their tech.
Yeah, it doesn't feel laggy at all. If it is, like, it's barely noticeable at all. It's very impressive.
Yeah, and most of the time, when you make a game, you design the things that are in your game such that they will not show the lag that is inherent in a system. I'm not saying that there's lag in the Wii U because I actually haven't done enough work with it to tell.
Yeah.
But like working with the Wiimote, for example, on one of the games I was working on, we had all these ideas. We're like, we want to do a little Guitar Hero thing where you strum along, and we want to do, like an exercise game where you do little poses and stuff.
Yeah.
And what eventually happened was we realized that, especially the original Wiimote that doesn't have the Motion Plus, was not as accurate as we were hoping it would be.
Right.
So what we would do is we would just choose the features that would work with the capabilities it had, and then not use the other features. So someday when the lag gets better on everything, you're going to start seeing all these AR you know, games and apps and stuff that actually work, and it's going to be very exciting.
Cool. Right, let's get to another question. How do you feel about what Ratchet and Clank have become nowadays with a movie and whatnot in the works?
Oh man, I'm excited about that movie.
Yeah.
Especially because TJ's writing it. Like, I love TJ. TJ's he's been the writer since this game.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, and
so he wrote the entire trilogy.
He wrote my favorite Ratchet story ever, which is this one.
Right.
And
fair enough.
you know, the rest of the trilogy. Yeah, he's great, and he's actually written other scripts that have been made into movies or optioned for movies and things like that. So he knows the Hollywood process, and the kinds of stories you tell in Hollywood are very different than the kinds of stories you tell in games.
Yeah.
But he knows both.
I'm hoping there'll be a game, like a movie game, as a tie-in, because like I do love
the game.
The Ratchet and Clank the movie, the game, the Let's Play. That'd be great.
Like Street Fighter 2. Remember that? They had an arcade game that was Street Fighter 2, the movie, the game.
Did they?
Yeah. It was from the Van Damme movie.
Oh, right,
and
okay.
It used sprites of all the actors instead of animation. It was really crazy.
Fair enough. But yeah, I mean, I love All for One. All for One's really good. I haven't played much of Q-Force, although I can't remember what it's called in America. You've got some
we
kind
have
of
a dick.
innuendo.
We have a dick joke, I think, or a butt joke.
Yeah, you have. What? Why are there not innuendos in the European version? The only one with an innuendo is, I think, Quest for Booty.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. They. That's entirely. The names get chosen by Sony Computer Entertainment Europe, right? SCEE.
Right.
So what happens is, usually Insomniac and Sony America will come to an agreement on a name, and then we pass the name over to Europe. And what they do is they try to make sure that it translates into all of the European languages, right? Including English, and so sometimes, you know, the puns wouldn't work.
Yeah, but why can't I just keep it for the English version?
Well, for example, Up Your Arsenal.
Yeah.
They really, really didn't want to have Arse in the title of a kid's game over there, whereas here Arse is way less of a like. If it was Up Your Arsenal, we wouldn't have been able to do it, but Arsenal was fine. You know, it's just like regional. They don't. They try to avoid any kind of regional differences, and often that would mean that they would just use you know, like Ratchet and Clank 2 or Ratchet and Clank 3 or things like that. Mainly because they, it's such a difficult thing to come up with a good name in the first place.
Yeah.
Coming up with two good names, I mean, it's like lightning striking twice in the same place.
What was wrong with Deadlocked? We got Gladiator.
I have no idea what happened with Deadlock.
What is wrong with that name? There's
that might
nothing
have been
rude or anything.
That one might, yeah. Oh, well, it was funny when we were working on Deadlocked. We got an email from, it was like, hey, let's come up with names. And we got an email from, I think it was Brian Hastings, one of the owners. And he said, you know, we're trying to do a bunch of different stuff with this one. How about if this time it's not Ratchet and Clank something about butts?
Right.
And I was like, yeah, fair enough. I think most of us were ready to do something that wasn't about butts.
Right. Yeah, we can give it a go, I guess. Jamie James also says thanks for the great childhood.
Oh, thanks, man. I totally appreciate it.
Alex Thompson,
Jamie James. That sounds like a man or a boy. Yeah, right?
I assume so.
Okay. If not, I'm very sorry for getting your gender wrong, Jamie James.
I'm going to assume it is.